Yeah, they say they want this more science, so I'ma give it to them. Islamism, no illusions when I'm interviewing. Know what I'm doing, no confusion, I ain't into crooning. I'm in the moving units, out here starting revolutions. In love with shooters, making masterminds out the goonies. I got them booming out here, zooming on the plane of soul. I tell them take me to the grove, they like Islam mode. I'm letting them know this not a show, this all systems go. It's two cells, one man, both high and low. I'm so spiritual, the indigos feel the vibe. I'm so lyrical, a miracle that I survive. Extend my 5 to the 4, I can see him coming. Plus my angel got the angle with the engine running. It's all justice, freedom, peace, truth, and love.
It's chapter 7, mind of an Asiatic, homie. Yo, see, any other time, I wouldn't pay you any mind. Put my best foot forward in every verse and every line. I used to dream, I used to pray about the day that I get signed into the truth. About this business just blew my mind. I swear to God, I used to think all I needed was a skill. High verse, catchy hook, dope look, then get a deal. I used to love the rock a sold out show just for the thrill until the real was revealed to my spirit like Jabril while my
Yeah. All praise due to Allah, and honors to the last prophet in these days and times. That's true Ali, that's true Ali. 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 It ain't no question where these lessons are coming from. In North Mex, I'm still flexing, dancing to the drums. They going dumb like, bruh, we ain't think you come from out of heaven, throw up the 7, sliding through the slums. Go 101 with my.
Hey. All right, peace, Moors. We're gonna get this started right now. Okay, Islam. So first and foremost, we're gonna get this started, but we always rise, giving the highest praise to the Most High, Father God Allah. We extend honors to our divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali, for bringing us our divine creed and nationality so that we may learn to love instead of hate. We also extend honors to the forerunner to the prophet, our dear brother Marcus Mosiah Garvey, for preparing the way for our prophet. And on this holy day, we also extend honors to all the faithful out there, all the Moorish American Muslims. We honor you, all you light bringers watching right now. We also ask that you hit the like button and share this video, help to get this information out here. We're going to go ahead and speak on Moors that are out here misrepresenting the movement and why they need to cease and desist. It's a must. Okay, it's a must. They don't realize they can bring harm to the movement. So we want to get that out. And just because some may not know any better, they may be doing it in error. So we want to point some of the things out that people are doing so that those who aren't purposely doing it can correct themselves and get in alignment with our prophet. So we have to put this out. You guys need to click like and share to help get this information out. People need to know this. So you're listening to the True and Living Light Bringer, Moors in America. As always, I'm your brother Lloyd Douglas L, also known as Sharif Ali here. We are uncovering and bringing glorious light to all issues pertinent to the Moorish American paradigm. This is definitely pertinent, so it needs to be spoken on today. That's what we do here on this podcast known as the Moors in America. I'm having a great afternoon. Hopefully you are too. So one last time I asked if you wouldn't mind, please share this. And don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. We have a couple announcements for you to see. Check this out. There's a Moorish American company selling fezzes. Moorish American owned and operated. Definitely go and support that.
Alhamdulillah. You heard? More pheasants.
I am not a Negro, Black, colored, African American. I'm a Moorish American. Peace.
Yeah. Hey, 5 on the right, 2 on the left, man. You know what time it is. Yo. We just Moors in America, soared through the shores and endured criminal acts of war on our character. 7 years after the 4th score, no reward. Shout out to the most courageous, they was jumping over barriers. Where does that compare to you? We come from a place where you scared to visit our area. We come from a place where it's scary for good Samaritans. Heavy luggage we carrying, babies having babies. It's crazy being American. Praise the one and only Allah, there's no comparison. La ilaha illa Allah, body and buried gin. Laughing at you clowns like ha-ha, dodging the Nephilim. Conquer lower self with a high, follow your regimen. Way before they came we were gods and now we specimen. Tried to take the light from our eyes, thank God for Edison. Then they put the wool on our eyes, it's so embarrassing. Now we travel frequently, we should invest in Sheraton. All of us got gold on our bodies whenever we stepping in. Screaming Ramadan, Mubarak, training the flesh again. Wishing we could move as a unit just like the Mexicans. Dodging all the foods with estrogen, synthetic medicines. All sin isn't devilish. Sometimes the decisions that you make come for a better gift. Sometimes when you sin is to relate to all your brethren. Heavenly gates all in our face, we the champions. We live in the sky, we see the angels on the chariots. Waiting on the $20 bill, face a Harriet. I bet you I'ma carry it. I'm in love with music to the point I wanna marry it. But my love for people is greater, so I write messages. Largest spending power, but we still sit at a deficit. Living amongst prejudice, even at our residence. Moors in America, flourishing, excellent. Let's buy up some neighborhoods and groom our own president. Yeah. And I come to you today with all intentions of spreading love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
All right, Islam Moors. One more time. Just want to bring in a word from our sponsors. Everybody make sure you go and support. Check out the artists that you saw in the beginning of this broadcast and make sure you support our sponsors. And on that note, we getting started right now, Moors. Don't go anywhere.
Alhamdulillah. You heard? More pheasants.
All right, I want to thank everybody for coming. So let me pull up the screen share. Just want to speak. So today, I want to speak about Moors, this misrepresenting the movement, with the focus really on people putting out false information, faulty information, halfway, you know, fugazi information, not even trying to knock it, you know, and especially like it's nothing personal coming to anyone in particular. But full disclosure, right? I was inspired by this post. There's a brother on my Facebook who put out this post just the other day saying, and this doesn't have to do with the topic, but this is where this came from, just so you understand the nature of what this is about. The brother put out a disclaimer or a decree for everyone, for the community, saying, do not use Larry Hoover's name or pics on social media unless you've been asked by my family. Leave Larry alone and let Larry come home. So, like, you know, this is the family of that man speaking out, saying, stop using his name and pictures, stop speaking about him, right? Stop speaking about him. And it's been shared a lot of times, 102 shares. It's important for him to put this out because of what's going on with, I think that's his uncle, you know, what's going on with him. He's trying to get out of prison, right? And there's a lot of people saying all types of things about him, and he just wanted to put that out there, like tell the people to stop. And so just once again, coming back to this, the reason I shared this is because he's trying to clarify. He's like, you know, he understands people that may be saying free Larry Hoover, but the ones that are saying all this extra stuff, please stop. And he's saying this because he's saying you might actually hurt his campaign for justice, right? He said, peace and love, humble gratitude to all our loved ones who support our family's freedom and justice campaign for my Uncle Larry. All right. And so they want people to know they appreciate him. But also, if you're saying anything other than just simple free Larry Hoover or pray for Larry Hoover, please keep it limited to only that. We don't need explainers. They don't need people going off and making up their own thing, saying all these extra things, because it's actually hurting the movement. It's hurting what they're doing, right? People still associating him with the gang activity when they're about growth and development, right? They don't want anything to do with that. And he's telling people, because he's like, you literally are hurting the campaign. And this is a family member saying this, right? So this, of course, has nothing to do with the Moorish Divine, but I'm going to we're making a video to everybody. So I'm not going to read this whole message, but this is where it came from. You know, it's kind of like he's putting this out there because there's people, especially now, there's a lot of people talking about Larry Hoover, people making up things about him, saying all types of things, some stuff that just sounds like incredible, like way out there. And he's saying, stop, please. No disrespect, but you need to stop. That's what the brother's saying. Okay. And so the reason why we're putting this post out here is in alignment, is similar in idea, you know, to why he had to put that out. It's because with the Moorish Divine National Movement, with what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali created for us, what he established is pure. It's actually pure. It can't be attacked. There's nothing wrong with it. But you have people on the internet, you have people all over the place who make up their own things, who have their own ideology, and that's fine. You can do whatever you want. You can think whatever you want. But when you try to mix it in with what the Prophet created, now you're dirtying it up. Now you're opening it up to attack. You're even opening the movement up to attack. And real briefly, I want to touch on this. Before we do that, though, I want to say Islam to everybody. Islam, and happy holy day to everybody. Everybody said hello, Islam. I see that, and I appreciate you all. Thank you for watching. And I know y'all hitting the share button, right? Everybody that's watching, please make sure you hit like and share. Okay, so I want to thank you all for coming here, showing love. Make sure you hit like and share it, because I feel like this message is really important. It needs to get out there because people need to know. Some people may honestly not realize that they are spreading false information. And so we want to clear up what's real and what's not, so that those who are sincere, who don't want to bring the movement, you know, into a bad light, who don't want to, you know, to misrepresent it, can know that they're doing that and they can stop. And then the ones who are still doing it, you know, I mean, like, basically now, you know, they're full of it, right? So we want to put that out there. And so first off, before we really get into this, we're going to go to the words from our prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Okay, so there's people who aren't in the temple, you don't even notice, right? We have certain decrees that are read out, or certain proclamations that are read all the time, just so that there's no confusion for those who truly follow the prophet of what the movement's about. All right, and first, we're just going to read Prophet warns all Muslims to be read in every meeting. And you know what? Yeah, we'll read the whole thing. So I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. Now, a lot of people are already breaking that because they're speaking radical. They're talking bad about people with different ethnic backgrounds, right? And it's like, if that's how you feel, you know, if you harbor hatred in your heart for other people, I mean, that's too bad, you know, for you, but you shouldn't be speaking like that. Just out of common sense, basically, you shouldn't even talk like that. There's people who are racist as hell who know now not to say stuff because they'll get fired. So you shouldn't speak like that anyway. And so speaking radical can be talking bad about other people, you know, saying things about people of European descent, but also speaking against the countries, being anti-government. We're not about that. We're not out here speaking radical. So you shouldn't be doing it at all. Why? And once again, we're going to the words from our prophet to be read at every meeting. Why? Because we are for peace and not destruction. We're not radical. We're not out here rioting. We would never riot. Peaceful protests within, you know, lawful bounds, fine. Nothing wrong with that, but it would have to be in a structured, organized way. We're not about rioting. We're for peace, not destruction. We're not anti-government because our ancestors are the creators of civilization. We can't be anti-government. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion, right? We haven't even fully established ourselves to the point where people would even know what you're doing, right? So stop flashing it. It's just causing confusion. So you have people that are, you know, flashing the cards. This is just ridiculous. This is not what the prophet brought. This is not what we're about. Then, of course, remember, your card is for what? Your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. All right. And so we're giving divine orders. We're giving divine instructions from the prophet. You must follow these in order to be successful. You must be faithful in order to be successful. All right. These are the laws of faithfulness. This is how it works. You have to be faithful in order to receive the blessing, in order for Allah to bless you, to make you fruitful, to make you be prosperous. You have to honor and be faithful. This is how it works. If we go into the Bible in Matthew 25, verse 21, it says, his Lord said unto him, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. Okay. And so by being faithful, right, God says, I will make thee ruler over many things. So in being faithful, you will receive the blessing. You will be prosperous. So those who are not being faithful, we have divine instructions from the prophet. So if you're out here doing all these things, you done already messed up a bunch of times. You're out here being radical. You're flashing cards, selling cards, right? Doing all types of stuff that we're not supposed to be doing. If you honor the prophet and follow these divine instructions from Allah, you will be blessed beyond measure. You'll be prosperous. And this is how the prophet was able to get the movement up and running and make it prosper in such a short amount of time, because he honored Allah and he was faithful. So those who are not faithful, that's why they're not prospering as well. So let's go back in here. So going back to warns all Muslims, we are for what? The divine principles: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Okay, so any member or group of members, who hold malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All right. So you got people that's out there talking bad about the temple, even some that are crazy enough to talk bad about the prophet. And they're claiming to be Moors, which is ridiculous. Makes no sense, because nobody was out here moving like the prophet, establishing our communities, our nation, and then teaching and giving us the vehicles to be successful. So everyone should honor the prophet. All true Moors will and must obey the law laid down to them by their prophet. All true Moors. Once again, we have to get in line. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, find you. Now, you got a lot of people who don't have faith in the prophet. They don't have confidence in them, but they don't want to turn in their, card and button. They don't want to cease wearing their turban and fez. They don't want to return to the state of being a Negro, or being an African American, whatever they call themselves now, foundational Black Americans. There was one dude who like always used to be in the Moorish movement, and like now I guess he's calling himself a ADOS, American descendant of slaves, or foundational Black American, whatever, but most people won't be like that. They won't turn in their card and button, right? They won't cease wearing their turban and fez and return to the state. They're just going to keep trying to push things that have nothing to do with the movement. So this has to be put out there. So this is the holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. So those who don't want to listen to these divine instructions, you'll have problems. You will continue to have problems. If you want to prosper, you must hold true, be faithful to these divine instructions from Allah. And your prosperity is guaranteed just for being faithful. The prophet, therefore, is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet in the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace, Noble Drew Ali. So we must protect the prophet in the temple. There are those out there who, maybe it's through ignorance. They don't know any better. And that's why they're doing these things that go directly against what the prophet brought. But it has to be addressed because these people must cease. We have to protect the temple. So some people are even opening it up to harm's way, making it open to attack, and wrongfully so, because we don't stand on the things that many of these people are out here promoting. All right. Islam, Islam, Islam. And that's what we're about. I mean, if you really want to know what we are about, it's very simple, right? We are trying to uplift fallen humanity. Come and link yourselves with the family of nations. We honor all the true and divine prophets. All right. That's actually a quote. That's from the prophet. All right. So, this is it. Come and link yourselves with the family of nations, not trying to put other people down or act like we're superior. We're coming back into the family of nations because we know that we had been reduced to chattel slavery status, that we basically had subhuman status. So we're coming back in. We honor all the true and divine prophets. We're not out here trying to talk bad about anyone or put anyone else down. Okay. And we're definitely not out here trying to put the temple in a position where it could be attacked. Right. That's the last thing we want to do, is to cause harm. So I do want to talk on that. But also, I saw a sister had a question in the chat speaking about the fez. Right. So you're saying your grandfather had one of these and you want to know what. OK, so you want to know about this. So the fez that you see on the Prophet Noble Drew Ali's head on this the divine constitution and bylaws that's on the screen. For us, it's not just a hat. For others, it is a hat, but for us, it's our national headdress. And this is something that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali returned to us. The fez and the turban, these are our national headdresses. And it's important because we had literally been removed from the family of humans when the Europeans came over here. And with this divine constitution being up here, it's perfect. If you actually go to Acts 6, Act 6 says, with us, all members must proclaim their nationality. And we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and partial of this said government. Why is that important? Because we didn't have our divine creed. We had been put under someone else's religion. right? Someone gave us a religion and they acted like they civilized us. They acted as if we didn't have a religion before that. We were just savages, which we weren't. We were civilized. Didn't matter if they encountered us here in the Americas, since we were here before the Europeans, or if they encountered us in Africa, you know, the people who were actually brought over here via the slave trade, right? It didn't matter where they found us. We were civilized. Not only that, but our ancestors had civilized the Europeans. But those people who civilized Europe were not Christians. They were Moors, and they practiced Islam. Okay, so this divine creed was returned to us for our earthly and divine salvation. So we have to give, it's part of the, you know, the ritual that we were put in. We must now return it back, give Christianity back to the European, while we are returning to our divine creed for our earthly and divine salvation. And then also in that, it includes our line of descent. We are Moorish Americans. All right. And as Moorish Americans, we descend from the creators of civilization. We had schools, pyramids, which were actually schools, universities all over the planet. Okay. And by returning to this and then now civilizing ourselves and doing the work to subdue our own lower selves, we are returning to our own nature. And we are coming back into our divine covenant with the Creator. And so coming back into this, we're learning our nationality and divine creed that they may know that they are part and partial of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians. Why? Those names were given to us by Europeans, right? To disconnect us from who we truly were. And they not only they give us these nicknames, but they legally define those names as referring to a people who started at slavery, literally, right? If you look, if you look into the past, you see there's several Negro acts and Christian black codes. You'll see that the Negro had very little to no rights. And you'll also see that he starts as slavery. But this is even still true today in how it's defined. Now, it's more tricky, but when you look at the federal race codes and you see how the African American black person is defined, they descend from the enslaved Africans still to this day. So nothing's really changed, right? So we know that we are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1789 and last 60 during slavery. New on all proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live in the nations of the earth. This is why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained noble Drew Ali the prophet to redeem his people from their sinful ways. This is why we honor the prophet. This is why you can't leave this out. No one else did this. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Okay, so Islam Sheikh, Islam to all the Moors in here. Happy Holy Day. So this is why we honor the prophet, and this is why you can't leave this out. And this is why also we have to put this out there to address those who are misrepresenting the movement. You can't misrepresent the Moorish Divine National Movement because it is truly divine. It's pure. What the prophet brought is pure. So different ideologies and things that people have, you know, not knocking it once again, but that's your specific ideology. But you have people out here who are literally touting these things as if this is officially what it means to be Moorish American. They're teaching these things. They're selling stuff. I mean, they're, you know, moving in a way that could open the movement up to attack, because if these people are name dropping the prophet, which they do, I've heard several people do it. They name drop the prophet. They sound like they know what they're talking about. And that's opening the entire movement up to attack. So it needs to be a separation. It needs to be understood, you know, and these people need to also, you know, be strong enough to stand on their own and say, hey, I get it. I understand. I'm doing my own thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Everyone can think for themselves. You know, you can do your own thing. For those who choose to follow the prophet, who really believe that Allah sent us, raised one up from amongst us, speaking our language, right, to help get us back in alignment with divine will and to help us come back into our divine covenant, we follow the prophet. We stick to the laws that the prophet gave us. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just like the people who want to freestyle and do their own thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't mix it. Do not mix it. You must stand on your own. You must have integrity. If you're trying to mix it, it seems like now you're trying to open it up to attack. Okay? Because what we have is pure, man. We are trying to uplift fallen humanity. What? There's no way to attack that. There's nothing wrong with that. But people who are genuinely, don't understand that you're spreading things, or that the things that you've been learning about have nothing to do with the movement. Now it's time to come back and get right. Okay, so we're going to discuss some of these things just to clear it up. And Islam, just want to make sure that those who are sincere get the message so that we can stop the spread of ignorance. One other reason why I wanted to bring this up was because there was someone who had asked a question about being sovereign, right? And it's like, look, the only sovereign is the creator, Allah. That's it. That's it. The only sovereign is the creator. And for us Moors, true Moors, there's no confusion about that. But you have Moors who have been spreading this information that has nothing to do with what our prophet brought us. And so that's why a lot of people automatically just associate that with being a Moor. It has nothing to do with being a Moor. Nothing. Matter of fact, the people who originally spread this ideology, this sovereign citizen stuff, I don't even want to say that word, but the ones who originally spread that ideology, many of them were of European, well, not only of European descent, but were practicing white supremacy. Okay, and I can actually prove that to you. Let me pull up some of the slides. I actually spoke on this before, and I can prove to you why you should have nothing to do with that if you are a true Moor. Okay, let me see. So just to give you some clues on what I'm speaking about, you can look up this name, William Potter Gale, right? William Potter Gale helped popularize a lot of the information that people are spreading. Okay, and in doing so, a lot of the rhetoric that you hear people talking about, even to this day, that has nothing to do with being a Moor, they're actually quoting this guy word for word. Okay, and so this is just one more example of why this stuff has nothing to do with us. We shouldn't even be parroting this information, right? The people who originally were spreading that type of ideology, that was their own way of striking out against the government. That was their own way of fighting for power against the people in government. Once again, something that had nothing to do with us. Nothing to do with us. One more thing. Not sure. You know what? I was going to share this. I don't want to put this on there, but hang on, Moors. Bear with me. Okay, so can't find the information I was looking for, but just going back to that, anything you hear sovereign has nothing to do with us. Nothing. Period. All right. We understand that the creator is the only sovereign. All right. And then nations, entire nations, yes, can claim that status. But, as a fragmented people, we still have a lot of work to do, really, to get to the point where we're providing our own food, when secure our water source and everything, where we have total autonomy, control over our destiny. So we have a lot of work to do before Moors can even really assert that our nation even is sovereign, right? We're working to get to that point. Okay, but definitely not at an individual level. Nobody should even be saying that, right? So just going back into here, just in the wording, though, of the Divine Constitution, right? It says, with us, all members must proclaim. Okay. Once again, in Act 7, all members must promptly attend their meetings. Why? We have our own ritual. We have our own customs that are being returned to us. These are actually free national standards. So just the fact that we as Moorish American Muslims, we all honor our holy day. We're all supposed to be doing something. Today's a holy day. If you're Moor and you're not going to a holy day meeting, there's a problem, right? If you busy, if you're in the club Friday, but you're not going to holy day meeting, there's a problem. If you don't even have time for that, it's too boring for you, there's a problem. Sunday school, if you're not there, there's a problem. These are our free national standards. This is part of what makes you an official Moorish American. Okay? We have a prophet who came and delivered our holy book and our laws to us, established our free national standards. So it's not just putting on the fez, the free national the national headdress, right? No, we have standards. So on the holy day, if you're a true Moorish American, you're a Muslim. Okay? And that's regardless of whatever spiritual beliefs and ideologies you may have, because as a Moorish American Muslim, we honor all true and divine prophets. We're returning back to the source. We're not copying anyone else. So it's like there should be no conflict from a religious point of view. So, excuse me, as Moorish Americans, we have the free national standards. So we, on holy day, everybody should be at their meeting. That should already be understood. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become not only that, but also become a part and partial of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. So whatever the uplifting acts are, we're supposed to be participating in it, right? We're supposed to be working to build our nation, because the uplifting acts, I think like 2 weeks ago, we were on here looking at some articles. We had an old article up from the Moorish Guide that showed the prophet declaring that each temple should have at least one or two businesses, right? Declaring that the temples had, many of the temples had grocery stores, right? And then different other types of businesses. And so this is being brought up right now because that's part of the uplifting acts, because our prophet made it known to us that from our perspective, the opening of businesses, increasing our economic base, making our economics stronger is a part of our religion, okay? And it's of the utmost importance. And it's not, people aren't adhering to this as strongly as they should be. So this is a part of our religion. We must promote economic security. And once again, that's from our prophet. So in connection with our religious aims and beliefs, we must promote economic security. The preaching of economic security among us is by no means as widespread and intensive as the circumstances demand. So this is specifically from our prophet. So just once again, returning to that, because participating in the uplifting acts, the temple's out here working to try to open businesses to increase our economic stronghold, right? You're supposed to be participating in that. But if you're not even in the temple, you're not even contributing the dues, which shouldn't even be a burden at all, right? You're not even trying to assist in the building of the nation. That means that you're not adhering to our own free national standards. You're not really participating. You're not really assisting. You're not really helping. And this is something that we're all supposed to be doing, right? As a collective, across the board. These are things that can't be left out. And so it's Islam to be industrious. So if you're not participating in that, there's a problem. All right. Just like I said, if you're not at the holy day meetings, the Sunday school, there's a problem. These are things that are just like required across the board for all true Moorish Americans, for all true. Okay. And it's not to be a burden on you. It's just keeping it real. We all need finances, right? We need land. You eat food, right? All of those things. And so this is an example of uplifting acts, right? Where it says it's the policy of every temple to have a community store and a laundry owned and operated by qualified members of the temple. In all the cities will be found a store or a laundry. Okay. And so that's just one of the examples of the uplifting acts. So if we're not participating in these, but we're out here doing all types of other stuff, right? There's a problem. And so this is why I'm saying, like, these are the things that we all should know as Moorish Americans. And that's why also everyone who's a true Moorish American should be in the temple. And you can't say that you're not in the temple because the temples are corrupt. Listen, there's going to be corruption. There's going to be issues. You know why? Because we as a people as a whole aren't cleaned up ourselves. Right? Whenever there's a problem, you know, we have to look at ourselves and work on ourselves. And that even goes with the collective. You know, if there's a problem within your household, that doesn't mean you leave your house, right? So it's the same way with the temple. You have to go in and clean it up. You have to go in and clean it up, because if you don't, who else is? Who's going to open these businesses and get the land and do all of this work that needs to be done? Who's going to start farming the land and doing all these things that need to be done if you don't do it? Okay, no one's going to do it for you. When are the Moors going to realize this? When are people going to get this as a whole? No one's going to do it for you, and it may not always be easy. Nothing really that's worth it is going to be easy, especially not all of the time. There's going to be some work required, and if you're not willing to get your hands dirty, that means you're putting the work onto your children and grandchildren, you know? And so this is important, and it has to be done and taken care of now. So, going back in here too, members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. So if you don't have the name of faithful, you haven't really come into the divine covenant. You don't really have the protections that are guaranteed, the prosperity that is guaranteed for the faithful. Okay, that's why I was reading the Bible verses earlier, because Allah guaranteed success. He said, I will make thee ruler over many things. But why would he make thee ruler over many things? Because you're a good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. So not even expecting you to be perfect, but just holding to it, being faithful. Allah guarantees he will make you prosperous. All right. In your endeavors, in your affairs, you will be prosperous. It's guaranteed. That's how it works. You show faith, you hold to it, you get blessed. All right. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children. Look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. So that means we have to be teaching our children. They have to come in and do it. Right. If they're not in, if they don't even get it, then it dies with you. They're not even going to take it on, right? They're going to go out and do the opposite of what they're supposed to be doing, right? So this is the divine covenant from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. This is how you come in. You in first in your meeting. You have to be part of the uplift. You have to get your household in order. That's coming into the covenant. And it sounds easy, but that's the biggest part. People have to do this. And so anything else that people are out there pushing, it really has nothing to do with the movement. Nothing. And, to get specific, some of the things I'd rather not talk about, because some of the stuff that people are pushing is so trifling that it just it dumbs down the whole entire level of this broadcast to even speak on it. Right. And it's been spoken on in the past, but, we don't want to go backwards, man. So people that are doing things, encouraging Moors to do things that put them in harm's way, has nothing to do with the movement. Nothing. Okay. Nothing whatsoever. People that are saying things that sound nice, making their own thing up, pushing their own thing, but every now and then they'll name drop the prophet or something like that. They need to cease and desist, because all they're doing is mixing in their flawed ideology with something that's pure and divine, right? For those that are outside of this, you don't understand. You may not care at all. But for us, the Holy Quran, Circle 7 Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, these are divine instructions. So when the prophet is giving us these divine instructions, we hold to it. We're not going away from that, right? We as a clean and pure nation, descended from the inhabitants of Africa, do not desire to amalgamate or marry into the families of the pale-skinned nations of Europe. We're not mixing with Europeans. We're not marrying into their families, right? Why? That would kill the whole point of the movement. Neither serve the gods of their religion. That would be going backwards, not knocking their religion, but for us, that's going in the opposite direction, because our forefathers are the true and divine founders of the first religious creed for the redemption and salvation of mankind on earth. Therefore, we are returning the church and Christianity back to the European nations as it was prepared by their forefathers for their earthly salvation, while we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam. We are returning to Islam, which was founded by our forefathers for our earthly and divine salvation. Why? Because we're coming into our divine covenant, the covenant of the great God Allah. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be longer upon the earth land which the Lord thy God Allah hath given thee. Come, all ye Asiatics of America, and learn the truth of your nationality and birthrights, because you are not Negroes. Learn of your forefathers' ancient and divine creed, that you will learn to love instead of hate. We are trying to uplift fallen humanity. Come and link yourselves with the family of nations. We honor all the true and divine prophets. So it's about learning to love instead of hate, subduing our own lower self so that we can be the higher version of us. That's the gist of it. That's mainly what it's about. Doing the work on ourselves to be the better version of ourselves so that we can truly live in love. We can't love anyone else if we don't truly love ourselves. So we're learning now how to love ourselves, how to be able to trust each other, right? Living off of our divine principles. So if you're more and you don't even know what our 5 divine principles are, there's a problem, right? We all must learn these. This is the only way to truly come into your redemption, right? Excuse me. So love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We all must adhere to these divine principles. Our thoughts, deeds, and actions, everything must fall within the confines of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Then we can actually trust ourselves. Then we can trust each other. Then we can be a blessing to the entire planet. We're not here to try to down people, to try to make other people feel less than. That's not what this is about. It may even sound like that when I'm reading this, speaking about not marrying. We don't desire to amalgamate or marry into the families of the pale-skinned nations of Europe. We don't want their religion. We're returning it to them. Well, there's a reason for that, right? The process that it took to get us to where we're at, we have to undo that. We have to return Christianity back to them because it was weaponized to take our land from us, to enslave us, literally, right? And so it has to be given back. But at the same time, it's like we're not turning around trying to enslave others, trying to attack others, trying to put other people down. That's not what this is about. We're truly trying to live off of our divine principles. And so when you have people claiming to be Moors, there's a guy who's on YouTube all the time. You know, he'll have his fez on, claiming to be a Grand Sheik, and he's always cursing everybody out, talking bad about everybody, using like racial slurs, all types of stuff that true Moors do not do. And you'll even see him acting like he has a temple and using the prophet's name. And I'm not going to put his name out there because he's probably not the only one. We're not attacking anyone, just that type of behavior. If these people are sincere, which I don't see how you can be sincere if you claim to actually follow the prophet. You have to know you're in error. But for those that see this type of activity and are learning from that, you have to understand you need to go to the source. The source, if you get the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, just reading the documents that are up here, like the Divine Constitution, you'll see that anyone teaching like that anyone speaking like that is in severe error and that they are leading you astray. And if you allow yourself to be led astray, you're putting yourself in harm's way for no reason at all. Because just by reading what the prophet brought, you see the sincerity in it, you see the purity in it, and you also see who's in error and who's not, right? Like well, you know what, I'm not even going to be specific. Just say there's a lot of people out here claiming to be Moors, even some who claim to uphold the prophet. There's even one that's got a big book with the prophet on the cover, but then he goes inside of it and he attacks the temple. He goes in there and he speaks bad of the temple, goes against the temple. What did we just read from the prophet about people like that, right? So if you actually go to the source, which will be the prophet for us, because the prophet of Allah is bringing us divine instructions from Allah. So when you go and you see how these people are conducting themselves, that protects you. Now you know, okay, these people, you know, they're doing their own thing. You know, you don't know what to think of them, but you know that whatever they're teaching is not right. Right? The prophet made it plain and clear that if you don't follow him, if you lose confidence in him, go ahead and return to the state where he found you. Right? Anyone who holds malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet, right? So you got people out there who's, you know, talking bad about the temple. They want to put the prophet up. It's like, look, if you have these malicious feelings, right, you're going to receive your reward. You might think you're getting by. You might think you're on the same road with the true Moors, but you're not. You're on another path, the path that leads to destruction. And so this was just put out there just so the Moors know, so that we're all on the path to our salvation, right? Earthly and divine salvation. Okay. And so you need to be careful with what you're listening to. That's why I would advise actually going to the temple. And I'm not saying the temples are perfect. Who cares? Get in there and fix it up. It's like if somebody's in your house and, you know, and they're throwing trash and stuff on the ground, you're just going to leave the house? Or are you going to clean it up? Even if you have to clean it up yourself and tell them to get out. Right? Because it doesn't belong to them. Right? You have to do what you have to do. But just going back to this, once again, just wanted to put that out there for those that are misrepresenting the movement, spreading this info that has nothing to do with what the prophet brought. What the prophet brought, you can see more than likely, even if you're new to this, just by explaining to you. Let's go to the article in here in the Moorish literature entitled "The Moorish Science Temple of America." Why? Because just by going to that article, you can see how pure this is and how it works. And this also lets you see who is not really following the Moorish Divine National Movement, who doesn't really adhere to the divine plan of the ages. It's easy to see once you actually go to the source. Okay, so hang on, almost there. Well, this is close enough. There was another one, but this is close enough. So Moorish leaders' historical message to America in connection with the I'm not going to read the whole thing. All right, let's go down a little bit. The object of our organization is to help in the great program of uplifting fallen humanity and teach those things necessary to make our members better citizens. Right? You have people speaking ill on this or saying we're not citizens. No, the prophet set us up to succeed. Okay, we have all the protections that we need as citizens. Now, if something even greater is going to be built, then it has to be built, but you can't pretend you're there yet, right? Because the movement's splintered, but it's everlasting. There's an awakening right now that's occurring. So everything was right on time. A national organization with a Rotarian complexion as it relates to branch temples. Okay, so national with the Rotarian complexion. So the temples aren't all the same, but they resemble each other because they have the same structure and foundation, right? It became obvious with the increasing number of inquiries from men and women in different sections of the country concerning the purpose of the organization. Now, we still have this occurring today. There are Moorish Americans all over the country, even in different nations, even overseas. All right. Back then, there were 15 branch temples in different states at that time. Since the work of the Moorish Science Temple of America was largely religious, the organization has been legally changed to a religious corporation, and an affidavit to this effect has been filed in the Cook County Recorder's Office of Illinois. Okay, so I actually wanted to read Moorish Science Temple of America. It's in here. I can find it, but this is close enough. This is way too long for me to read everything. I would advise you to get a copy of Moorish literature. You can get one from the temple, which is probably the best idea now, even though you can find it in places like Amazon and stuff. The best move is to actually get one from a temple so that you don't get one that's been that's had stuff added to it, have stuff in there that the prophet didn't even say, that's going to cause more confusion. So I would advise you to get one from a temple. But just going back in here. Okay. In connection with our religious aims and beliefs, we must promote economic security. Going on again, the preaching of it, economic security is not as widespread and intensive as circumstances demand. No other thing is more needed among us at this time than greater economic power, right? Better positions for our men and women, more business employment for our boys and girls, and bigger incomes will follow our economic security. We shall be secure in nothing until we have economic power. This is a part of the temple. This is a part of our religion, increasing our economic power. A beggar people cannot develop the highest in them, nor can they attain to a genuine enjoyment of the spiritualities in life. This should be taught in all the temples because this is actually from the prophet. All right. Our men and women should be taught to believe in the capacity of our group to succeed in business. People think that, if we doing it, if so-called Negroes doing it, right, it's going to be done janky. It's going to be bootleg. You can't really trust it, right? We don't really patronize each other, right? But no, we Moorish Americans are supposed to think differently. We can succeed. Despite what's happened around us, despite what happened in the past, no, we believe in it. We're different. Read carefully the doctrines of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It contains our hopes, aims, rules, and articles of religion. Every member should have a copy. So, just read this too in conclusion, right? Going back to the problems of life are largely social and economic. We're not sticking our head in the sand, acting like we don't have to participate in politics. While the prophet, meanwhile, was getting people elected into office. And then people will say, well, that was back when it was a republic or something. And it's like, no, you have to deal with your situation right here and now. Right here and now. The problems of life are largely social and economic. In a profound sense, they are moral and spiritual. Okay, so just going back to this, we deal with it all. We're not ignoring it. We're not pretending there's some magical solution, right? Social. That means politically getting laws made, everything that you need, and economic. Not acting like you can just go and take someone's house and land from them, right? You're actually, acquiring land in a lawful manner, okay? And adhering to our divine principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, a deeper appreciation for womanhood, right? These are the things that we stand for. And if anyone's pushing anything outside of that, run away. And if they're claiming to be, claiming to uphold the prophet or the temple or any way associating themselves like with, what the prophet brought, they are in grave error. And more than likely, they know they are. They're trying to mislead others purposely. There are some people who's actually actively doing that. They don't have to stay away. They need to desist immediately to dirty up the movement, and it can't be allowed, right? So this is what I was looking for, the Moorish Science Temple of America. I just wanted to read something specific, okay? We of the Moorish Science Temple of America, like countless other American citizens, okay, and before we read that too, it is most earnestly hoped that the Moorish Science Temple of America will not in any way be confused with any Back to Africa movement, right? That's not necessary for us. We're right here. We're in our homeland, okay? But we of the Moorish Science Temple of America, like countless other American citizens, we're not putting anyone else down or acting like just because you're more, everyone's under you. No, like countless other American citizens know that we must live together in America in harmony, friendship, and goodwill. If you live off of these principles, if you live off of what the prophet established, you're good. You're not opening yourself up to attack. We know that, like countless other more American citizens, we must live what? Together in America in harmony, friendship, and goodwill. You can't attack that. This is how it is. Harmony, friendship, and goodwill. Whatever our race and creed may be. It is only from a purely religious standpoint, it seems at times, that we differ from a large number of our fellow Americans. We believe in and foster the Muslim religion, okay? And that's it. We are interested, once again, economic, freeing ourselves and our children from the greatest plight, economic slavery. We believe this can best be done by encouraging, patronizing, and establishing our own business enterprises and cultivating our own acres of land. So everyone should read this. Everyone should have the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam, sister, what did you say? Everyone should have that Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Divine Constitution, the Moorish literature, and the 101s, the Moorish, the Quran questionnaire. And everyone should go and read this. If you've never read this, the Moorish Science Temple of America. And then also what I was reading, this gives you the hopes. This gives you the aims. This lets it be known what we stand on. We know we have to live in harmony, friendship, and goodwill. And then once again, the economic, the pressure is on to increase our economic power. All right. The greatest plight, economic slavery. We have to come at this. We have to be taking care of this. So this is what it's about. It's very practical, right? Increasing our economic power, right? We can't even attain to our potential if we're beggar people. Everyone should read Moorish Leaders' Historical Message to America. Once again, gives you a detailed understanding of what we're about. And also by default, what we're not about. Everyone should know this. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you, because there's Moors out here that's, leading people astray and putting you in harm's way. Okay? So you must understand this. This is the most important. I'm saying you must, not because this is what I think, no, because this is what the prophet brought us. Somebody said, how can you say we must live together in harmony, but then you say you can't date or marry someone because of European descent? This isn't what I said. Those are divine instructions from the prophet Noble Drew Ali. Now, when you say living in harmony, does living in harmony mean that you have to marry someone? Does living in harmony mean that you pass up your own Asiatic brothers if you're a woman, or your own Asiatic sisters if you're a man, and go to get with the Europeans? That's what you have to do to live in harmony with them? You can't be friends. You can't have a business relationship, a working relationship with these people. It's like, no, that's not the only way to live in harmony with somebody, is to get married to them, right? You don't have anyone that you're friends with? No. It means exactly as was just said in the chat. You do not abandon your own divine creed and principles. And part of our divine creed is returning to Islam, which was founded by our forefathers for our earthly and divine salvation. And now, if you truly are Moorish American and understand the history and how we got into the circumstances that we were in, you will understand why it's important that we complete this circle, this ritual, by returning Christianity and the church back to the European nations, and then not marrying the same people who came from the opposite side of the situation that we're in. The ones who benefited from us being placed under Christianity, the ones who benefited from us being placed under the papal bull and being declared savages. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with returning to your own. All right. But I do understand that the programming is deep and it's been ongoing for so long. This is why Moors need to come into the temple, to get unprogrammed, to get out of that, to wash that mess out of your brain. All right. Because anyone that thinks that the only way to live in harmony with people is to be able to marry them and have sex with them, that's not the only way to live in harmony. Living in harmony means we're not fighting, right? We're not at war with each other. That's it. And you don't have to date. Moorish American Muslims don't date. If you're not getting married, you're just playing games out here. We have marriage instructions, not dating instructions. And there's a reason for that, because the marriage The divine union is sacred. We must hold to this. Now, the Europeans, not knocking Europeans or anyone else, but they date. They're Christian. There's no conflict for them to be dating, even to be having casual sex. There's no conflict. For us as Moorish American Muslims, there's a conflict. Because if you're a Moorish American Muslim, you're not out here trying to run through all these different dudes, run through all these different women. You're supposed to be getting married. Now, are all Muslims married? Of course not. Obligated, right? Of course they're not. They have to come in and learn. We have to return to our divine creed. We must learn how to love instead of hate. Okay? So we must come in and learn this. You more than likely didn't have parents that were teaching this to you. Why? Because they didn't know it. We fell astray. Now it's time to come back in, you know? And if you're going to rock the, I see you got the Bay and have the Moorish flag, why not come into the source? This is where it came from. You wouldn't have the Bay or the Moorish flag if the prophet didn't come and establish this. He didn't just set up the temple and say, oh, we're just going to teach y'all. No, they set up businesses in several states. They moved as a unit. They had their own economy. They were becoming autonomous to the point where they could even keep functioning even if the entire country fell around them. This is how the Moors were moving. Or at least getting to that point, getting land, having businesses. And then even this is why the prophet was able to move and he's speaking directly with senators and governors and getting laws and things made for the Moors because he's got numbers, right? And this is why when he traveled overseas, he's seen as a head of state, recognized like that here and also overseas because he had the numbers and they're moving in unit. This is why it was real. And he said, this is an everlasting movement. So even though it fell apart, it's coming right back together. So the prophet was right on time. A lot of people would think, well, he was ahead of his time or something. But no, he was right on time because even though it fell apart and they didn't teach us this in school, they don't even talk about this on TV. They try to avoid this topic. All right. But we're still here and rising. Moors waking up every day. Because it's in our DNA. So the prophet was right on time. 2022, we're coming online just out of the blue because it's divine, right? And if you are married to someone who's of European descent, that's okay, especially if this happened before you even knew about this. No one's trying to knock that, and it's not an attack on anyone personally. There's no hatred. We're just saying this is what we teach. And it may, excuse me. So it may be difficult to teach this to your children, if you're coming up in a mixed relationship. It may not, right? But this is what we teach. And we're not going to stop teaching this because, different people are in different situations, right? And if you don't have any problem with that, we'll come on in. But if you do, then I will understand why that would be a conflict. But it's not, coming in and attacking. Wow, YouTube's hating, huh? Okay, so anybody who's subscribed, or even if you're not subscribed, make sure you hit subscribe and hit the little bell button so you can get notifications. Yeah, YouTube is acting crazy, though. They're supposed to let everybody know. That's wild. But I just want to reiterate that. So, for people who are members, there's no hate. Okay, nobody's going to be hating on you or hating on your husband or wife if they're of European descent. There's no hatred. Okay, but we have divine instructions for our earthly and divine salvation, and we can't change that. We can't change what the prophet brought. This is what we teach. We teach this for our posterity, for our prosperity and posterity. This is being taught not just for us, but also for our children and grandchildren, so that they can learn to get out of the situation that we're in, of the mess that we're in. Okay. And so the mess is not people being married to being married to Europeans. No, the mess is us not having control of our own communities. Right. And nobody's saying that you shouldn't be married to your wife, like be married, and you can even come in and be a part of the temple. But no one is saying that we're going to stop teaching what the prophet brought us. There's no hatred in that, saying that we don't desire to go in that direction. No, on the opposite, these are divine instructions for us to come back into our divine covenant. This is how we got into that situation. If you want a little history, really just like a short, real brief history on this area, North America, when the Europeans came over here, a lot of them, well, first off, when the Europeans came and set up their little encampments, right, the so-called Native Americans who quiet as kept were us. For the most part, they look like us. There were other people over here too, the ones that they say of the Mongoloid stock, but for the most part, it was us. So they smelled the European towns and little encampments. They could smell them from miles away. This is what they said. It's documented history. They could literally smell them from miles away, right? Because the Europeans didn't live like them. They were bringing over their ways, and like a lot of times when they, were in England and Paris, and this is even after the 1400s, they were throwing their feces out the window, right? So I'm just saying this to say the Europeans, their camps, the Native Americans, so-called Native Americans could smell them, right? They didn't, they knew they were there, right? And the Europeans, when they would come into the indigenous Americans' towns and cities, right, a lot of them tried to go native. And I'm saying this for a reason. They saw how they were living, and they felt like it was better than what they were, how they were living in their little towns and camps, right? The colonists. And so a lot of them went native, and they married into the tribes. Okay. And so that's one thing that happened. And then also, if you really want to know how the Europeans actually flipped things on us, it wasn't so much the military as it was the other aspect of how they came in. And the other aspect that they came in was through the missionaries, through the, the spreading of Christianity. They sold it as, we want to spread the gospel, the good news to you, let you know about Jesus, right? Nothing wrong with that, if that's your pure intent. But that wasn't the pure intent for the most part. And some of the people, missionaries, may have felt like that, but they were part of a military operation, which was to convert these people, right? Convert them into Christianity. This will pacify them. This will give them a different identity, right? Remember, the slave identity wound up creeping in, and this will get them out of their divine covenant. Their divine covenant protects them by honoring their forefathers and foremothers. They're protected. It will keep them in a different mindset, so they don't have a foreign mindset. They think for themselves, right? So this is what the missionaries were really doing. They were part of the military arm. The missionaries would come in, make nice with the indigenous, and they'll even act like they're working against the soldiers that are coming in to slaughter them. Yeah, we love you. We want to help you, right? But they're actually coming in, and they were working on their minds. That's the real war. So once they converted their minds, now they're a little more pacified. It's a little easier to take them over. And that's really what it was about. Okay. Those who saw the movie Avatar a long time ago, know they got another one coming out. In Avatar, they had the military, heavy duty. They had what? They were getting inside of the Avatar bodies, putting their consciousness in it. Right. So both of those sets of people, the military and those scientists, they were all bad guys. None of them were good, right? But since Europeans made that movie, they made it seem like the hero was the European dude who got in the blue body and he was helping them to work against his own military. Like, yeah, right. That's not how it works. So there was entrapment either way. Okay. And so this is not knocking any one European person. No, this is the structure. We have to get out of that structure. We have to give it back to them. Okay. So to make a long story short, for a lady married to a European or a man married to a European, it's no hatred. You're doing the right thing, especially you have children together. You're supposed to be married, raising your children together. No one's knocking that. But then again, as far as the temple is concerned, what we teach, what we practice, what's law, what we want for our children and grandchildren is to not do this anymore. We are returning to our ways. Not going to be going back to church anymore. We're returning to Islam for our earthly and divine salvation. Okay? And so nobody take this personal, right? Because there's no hatred. But we have divine instructions that guarantee our success. And as long as we choose to operate outside of that, we are still setting ourselves up for failure. Okay? Now, personally, you can be prosperous and everything, but as a collective, we have to come into our divine covenant. It protects you. It puts the armor on you, right? It guarantees your success, your prosperity. And this is what we need to do as a collective. It's one of the things that people still haven't done, right? And so, I'm glad those questions were asked, though. But this is important. People don't know it. That's why you have to come into the temple. That's why everybody, if you need to get on the meetings, ask these questions. Ask these questions on the meetings. Get the Quran, get the Divine Constitution, the Quran questionnaire, and get the Moorish literature. All right. I saw somebody said bees don't marry flies, right? And look, not knocking you, anyone in particular. Please, nobody take that. That's you got jokes, man. I wouldn't tell anybody to do that, but I'm just saying, like, look, don't take it personal. This is divine instructions for us. This is law. All right. And we are not going to stop that for anyone else's personal preference. It's just like if somebody trying to come, well, it's not the same, but I'll give another example. This isn't the same, so don't try to say this is a parallel. But say somebody, is LGBTQ, right? And they want to come into the temple, right? Now, like right off bat, if you're going to keep it real, you have to let this person know, we have marriage instructions between man and wife, right? Man and woman. And we're not going to change that just because you're LGBTQ, right? You understand that, right? Because we're not going to change this. It's not going to happen. Duties of a husband. But it's talking about a husband with a wife. See, the first sentence, just so nobody could try to confuse that. Well, you could have been a husband and a husband. No. Take unto thyself a wife and obey the ordinance of Allah. Then it says it again. Take unto thyself a wife and become a faithful member of society. There's no confusion there for us. No confusion. No they, them, he, she, it, all this other stuff. No, that's for other people. That's not for us as Moorish American Muslims. There's no confusion, right? It's marriage instructions for man and wife from the noble prophet. So, people want to come in and learn and listen, on the meetings, that's cool, but you're not going to be changing divine instructions. And that's no knock to anyone. It's not going to happen. These are here for a reason. Obviously, this guarantees our success. And people who've never seen that, go in and read that. Check it out. Marriage instructions for man and wife from the noble prophet. Yeah. And then once again, like, it's not personal. You can't change it. You can't change it. This is one reason why, though, we needed to make this video, why I want everybody to please like and share this, because there's Moors out here misrepresenting the movement. They'll tell you it don't matter. Just like there's preachers, like Christian preachers, who like marry LGBTQ couples, right? They married them, right? We never doing no mess like that. We're not going to change and act like chapter 21 don't exist. And anyone, if this is too strict for you, go on somewhere, right? If you don't like it, man, I can't get with that chapter 21. They talking about marriage instructions for man and wife from the noble prophet. Man, I don't even want nothing to do, right? I don't even want nothing to do with the prophet, right? If that's how you feel, go on somewhere. It's just like this. Look, somebody said that dude talking about Moors being citizens. It's like, look, this ain't no knock to you, but you got to go in time out, because this not that dude saying that. That dude is the prophet. Are you insane? You can't say that dude referring to the prophet. The prophet said that. If you got a problem with the prophet, you know what we said earlier, right? Reading from the prophet, you need to turn in your card and button, cease wearing your turban and fez, and return to the state where the prophet found you, right? Where I, the prophet, found you. That's what you need to do. Don't come in here telling me what somebody else said online or what someone else said who's misrepresenting the prophet. I don't care. They know what they're supposed to do because they're the one misrepresenting it. They probably leading people astray on purpose. They know they're supposed to return to their Negro state, but they don't want to because they got some kind of scheme they pushing and you following right along. Or you pushing that stuff yourself and you know better, right? I ain't the one that said that. The prophet said this, but you going against it. So that means, you know, you can't get with this. You need to return to the state where the prophet found you. You lost confidence in them. Right? I don't care what you found online or what somebody else said. That's that other mess. That's what this whole video is about. We not with that. Right? Islam, peace to the Moors in Miami. Okay? So, and you know, for the brother said, maybe you Blackstone, maybe. I mean, you know, Blackstone, that's a gang organization. That has nothing to do with something that's holy and divine. And not knocking the Blackstones. It is a street organization. That's not what the prophet brought. If you're true, you coming into the temple, you cleaning yourself up. And if that's a problem, you know, whatever. You know, that's just like I was saying, you know, somebody LGBTQ, I can't get with 21 marriage instructions from man and wife from the noble prophet. I can't get with that. Well, kick rocks. Who cares? You know, it's not what I said. This is what the prophet said. Anybody got problems with this? I can't get with that because it says we don't desire to amalgamate or marry into the families of the pale skinned nations of Europe. Well, guess what? I think majority of the people on here are going to be like, okay, if that's a problem, right? That's why it's in there. That's another reason why it's in there, because if this is going to be a problem for you, like that's why I said the thing about teaching the children. Like this is what we're teaching ourselves. This is what we want our children and grandchildren to do. I'm not doing all this and then my daughter going to go and marry a European. That's not ideal. That would mean she's going against it and she don't care about the divine covenant. We teaching this to our children. So if they go against it, you know what I'm saying? That means they don't care. It's gone. We did it for nothing. Right. And then if you in a mixed relationship and it's difficult for you to teach that to your children, then that means you don't need to be in here anyway, because you're going to have conflicts with what the prophet brought. It's just like with the marriage instructions with man and wife. If they going to have problems teaching this and propagating the faith, then they need to kick rocks. We're not softening this up for people because they're following the ways of of man. We're not, right? And that was disrespectful for that dude to come in here talking about the citizen. Whoa, that dude said citizen. Like that dude is the prophet. How can you even do that, man? These boys ignoring what the prophet said. That's what this whole thing is about. So everybody watching, make sure you click like and share. We come in, to teach the truth and to spread the true teachings of the prophet, not the, mixed race, confusing craziness that all these other people were teaching. And this ain't knocking people in in different relationships and stuff. You could do that, but especially you already in that relationship. It's not knocking that. This is just getting to the source, man. If that's a problem, a conflict, that's going to make it hard for you to adhere to our law, to teach this, right? Then this ain't for you. And it's not my decision. It's just what people are honestly admitting themselves, right? Like, this is like me. Like, if I'm up here and I'm married to a European and I see this, we as a clean and pure nation descended from the inhabitants of Africa do not desire to amalgamate into the families of the pale-skinned nations of Europe, right? If that's a problem, I need to go on somewhere. This ain't for me. This is not a problem for me. And if it's a problem, then this ain't for you, right? Because we ain't going to change it. And for those Moors that are out there trying to remix what the prophet brought, you can kick rocks. We're not changing it. We're not changing it for any of y'all. You just like that dude, he's got put in timeout in here talking bad. The prophet said that we are citizens, and you got a problem with that? You can kick rocks. Nobody cares either, because we're not remixing what the prophet brought for somebody else. Or because somebody you like said the opposite of what the prophet said. I don't care. We rock with the prophet, period. Yes, Lord Bao is another name for Lord Bay. because Baal was a Canaanite god. And a lot of the Canaanites took on that name Baal, Bay, which became Bay as their last name, El and Baal. So El and Baal were both Canaanite gods. And they both basically insinuate lordship, rulers of the land, titles of nobility. All right. But you got people want to rock with those titles of nobility, but they not even coming into the divine covenant. So you on the outside looking in. You got a problem with the divine covenant because we got, instructions, divine instructions that we're going to adhere to and don't care if other people can't get with it. Don't care. Right? That religious stuff is hard for some people. Well, kick rocks. We Muslims. We practice Islam or Islamism. And we're not going to stop. It's Holy Day more. So let me get on off of here. But I do ask that everybody click the like and share button. Okay. This isn't, an attack on anyone in particular. But this is put out there to diffuse a lot of the faulty information that's been shared over the years, that's been misleading people over the years. We want to get back to the source. We want to get away from that because, we want to clear things up. It's Holy Day. We want to clear things up and make it understood who we are and where we come from, and to put everyone else on notice too, man. All the more spreading that trash, acting like it has something to do with the prophet. Y'all need to go on somewhere, right? There's no more love for that because, it's just been leading people astray. So we're getting back to the source. And this is what we did too in here. Go back if you didn't see the whole thing. We listed the source, and for Moors to go to get the Quran, to get the Quran questionnaire, to get the Moorish literature. Right. And am I leaving anything else out? Did I say divine constitution? Get the divine constitution. OK. And it's like, dude, you gone. You're up out of here. Right. You're doing. And just to put that out there again, for those who are, following faulty information, you're supposed to return that card and button that fez. You're supposed to stop with trying to wear the fez and turban and rock the L in the bay. You're not a true Moor. You don't follow the prophet. That's what it is. I didn't make that up. And there was a question asked about elaborating on the difference between El and Bay. Just briefly, El and Bay are basically Moorish names, right? It's not our free national name, but they are national Moorish names. The free national name is just Moorish American. Real simple. But these are basically the national Moorish names that the prophet established our nation on. We just annex it to our last name. That's it. And that signifies that we are citizens of the nation established by our prophet. So the people rocking the L and the Bay, they need to go on somewhere, put a day or Al, people got Al and Day. Do that. Do something else. The prophet established this. How you going to rock the flag and have the L or Bay that the prophet established, but you don't want to abide by the divine instructions that bring you into the divine covenant? You're on the outside, but you want to, do you. So, the prophet established this, and that signifies that we're citizens of the nation. Here, they stuff, doing all stuff that has to do with the prophet's movement, right? And that also, it represents spiritual transformation and awakening that's taking place in your life. And the Bay means governor. Bay refers to governing abilities with the spirit and the character of man. And then El means God or creator. And that refers to the creative abilities within the spirit, soul, and character of man. And then these names also represent the keys to our vast estate. Why? Because you must come back into the ways of your ancestor to come into your divine covenant, right? Earthly and spiritually. Right. And so just hopefully that explained it briefly. But just going back to this, that's why these These fakers out here, they rocking the elevate, knowing that the prophet brought it, or not knowing that the prophet brought it, and they're out here doing all types of stuff that has nothing to do with the Moorish movement. And then these same fools, like when they get in trouble, they want Moors to come and come to their court case or something to make it look like they got a lot of friends, make it look like they have a nation, right? It's like no, y'all by yourself. Okay, so on that note, everybody, click that like and share button. Click that like and share button. Gratitude, McKinney L, for sharing that in the chat. Right? It's no hatred, it's no anger, but there's things that need to be cleaned up. Okay. Somebody said, okay, so I guess we can answer one more question. Doesn't matter which temple. I was told Temple 43 is the only true temple. A lot of Moors will say that their temple is the only true temple or the only official temple. And when people say stuff like that, I try not to look at them sideways, but just giving you the gist of what I think of it. Like, we the only ones, we the true ones. It's like, okay, so that means y'all got Moors all over the nation, right? Because I'm thinking like what the prophet had. So that means you have temples all over, and all of your temples have businesses. Let me bring that article back from the Moorish Guide. Right. So that means all of your temples, they're all over the country, and they all have like, maybe not a laundry store anymore. You don't have as many laundromats as you used to, but all of y'all have at least a grocery store, right? You have a community store. You have little dollar stores or something. You got some businesses going on. You got economics in all the cities where all your temples are, right? And y'all moving as a unit. You got thousands of members, right? Because if they're going to say that they're the only temple, then like, okay, so that, because you got to look at like, there's very practical reasons why what the prophet did carried weight. It wasn't just because of who he was and how he dressed and stuff like that. It's because like from a practical standpoint, all right, and the prophet set up temples in several different states, and in every city they had businesses, right? You see that it says in all the cities will be found a store or a laundry, and this was even before he set up the Supreme Grand Council. He set that up last. So in all of the cities, they had stores or laundry. They had stores and markets. In some cities, 2 and 3 stores and markets. They were generating finances locally. And then they also had a national treasury. So the temples are paying like a per capita tax. They're sending a smaller amount of finance to the national treasury. So they're building a national treasury, plus the temples locally got dough, and they have members. So they can affect their local elections. Then they can also, since he's getting it nationally, they can affect national elections. So they have power and weight. Plus, they're not beggars because they have businesses. So they have their own finances. So if somebody try to say, oh, we're not going to work with y'all, we can do it ourselves. These are the practical reasons why it worked. People want to skip over that, act like it's because of how he filed. Get on somewhere. Those people are people who don't want to do any work. Okay, there's very practical reasons why it works. So they had temples in all these different states, and they had businesses in every city where there was a temple, and they're building finances, and they're smart enough to build it up locally. nationally, right? That's like us today. We have all these African Americans, so-called African Americans, got businesses bringing in money, but we don't have a national treasury just for us. That's why what the prophet did was powerful, right? And then nationally, we move as a unit on certain issues. That's why what the prophet did was real. So if anybody telling me they're the only true one, not knocking that temple, just saying if they saying they're the only true one, that means they moving like the prophet, right? And since, the answer is probably no, then there you go. There's your answer. They don't have businesses all over the country and got finances locally and nationally, got everybody moving in one unit locally and nationally. It's splintered, and it's not going to get like that until we come in and make it like that. All right. And so anybody trying to act like it's because of how they're set up legally and all this stuff, they acting like that's all the prophet did. Like he do all this physical work. And you know why he was able to do this and to get it up and moving in just a short amount of time? Just a few years. He got it popping, and they bringing in all this money, and they have all these thousands, like over 35,000 members. Okay, so the reason he was able to get that, and that 35,000, back in the 20s, there was 109 million people in the country. So that means today there's over 330 million. So that means you're talking about, like, instead of 35,000, you're talking about having like 115, 120,000 members at least, just to even say you moving like the prophet. All right. So there's a lot of work to do, and not splintered and everybody has different leadership. Now moving in one direction. All right. So the prophet was faithful. That's why I was reading the scripture earlier, right? He was faithful, and that's why he prospered. That's why the nation prospered, and that's why it hasn't prospered since then. He was faithful, right? Thou hast been faithful over a few things. And he says, I will make thee ruler over many things. So by being faithful, Allah has to bless you. He has to prosper you. That's how it works. Faith and then prosperity. And this is why, anyone saying they the true anything, they not faithful, they not prospering. And if they are, then cool, they are true. But if not, no, they faking the funk, or they working to get there, hopefully. So that I hope that brings some clarity to it. That also goes to Moors misrepresenting the movement, right? Because if they trying to tell you they the real temple, and they saying it's because of how we structured, it's because of our lineage, it's because of the lineage, really? So you want to act like all this stuff that the prophet did and what made it official, it was because of how he set it up legally? Really? You gonna tell me that the reason how the prophet set it up from paperwork perspective, that's why it's powerful? You gonna tell me this policy? This is a policy that every temple is to have a community store and a laundry, 2 businesses. In all cities will be found a store and a laundry, and some are 2 or 3 stores and markets. So you don't think them having 2 or 3 stores in every city there's a temple in, that's the reason why the prophet's movement worked? He held faithful to Allah's plans, to Allah's divine instructions. That's why it was faithful. And that's why I was reading from the prophet's words where he said economic security, economic power over and over again. The preaching of economic security. These are the prophet's words. He built the businesses, or the Moors followed his instructions and built businesses in every city there was a temple. And that's why it prospered. And the Moors moved in one direction. They held faithful. They listened to their leadership. That's why it prospered. You can't have all this splintering and all these people claiming to be the only ones and official heads. That is lunacy. That is, if for Moors to keep following it, to continue following it, then that means Moors will continue to suffer. Moors will not prosper until they move as the prophet moved. Not as such and such said, as this leader said. No, as the prophet moved. Go to the source. And the leaders who don't follow the prophet, get them out. Period. And if we do that, we will prosper overnight. And if we don't, it'll continue to be what it is, where even your own children want nothing to do with it. Okay? They rather follow Juice WRLD, that rapper that OD'd on whatever drugs he was doing. They'll think that's cooler than this. And that should like make everyone want to get right, because that's foolishness. That's lunacy. So once again, make sure you click like and share. These aren't just my words. I'm just interpreting what the prophet brought. You can go to the source yourself and make sure that I'm not leaving anything out. And I'll go back and share the titles of everything in the description. So make sure you come back to the description. Make sure you share this a couple of times. And on that note, Moors, let's get on up out of here. Peace and love. Make sure you check out our sponsors.